that pointed out are slamming this. They say it's not just an overreach, it is unconstitutional to a guy who knows that document pretty well. Uber attorney and radio talk show host star Mark Levin. Mark, you've seen all of this go down. I've had the pleasure of listening to you of late, and you're worked up about this. I mean, and I haven't had your latest response to this. What do you make of all of this?
I'll tell you what I make of this. We have the elements of a police state here, and I'm not overstating it. When you step back and realize the Supreme Court the other day ruled 5-4 that law enforcement can take DNA from you even if you're arrested. And by the way, you're arrested when you're stopped for a speeding ticket. And Scalia was right, concerned about a national database. That goes way over the line of our traditions. You look at the Internal Revenue Service, what's going on there today, and they collect extensive financial and personal information. They put it on a database. This Obamacare is a massive data collection as well of our private, personal medical conditions, procedures, drugs, mental, physical illnesses. The Transportation Department, people forget, has proposed black boxes in all of our automobiles to track how they function and how far they go in accidents. We now have domestic drones from the EPA to make sure farmers aren't stepping out of line. The Department of Homeland Security now is checking laptops and iPhones and other data and making copies of it and keeping it. And now we have this. And some of my brothers and sisters in law enforcement, prosecutors, are saying, look, this is permitted. You know, we need to be able to go through a match phone. Wait a minute. You don't throw a whole net on the entire country and everybody's phone numbers and check the duration and see if you can come up with some overlaps. That's not law enforcement. That's not how national security works. I don't care what the hell the Supreme Court said 30 years ago or what some judge said 15 minutes ago. This is America, and our government's collecting way too damn much data on we, the private citizen.
Now, they did this under the auspices, I think, just tracing back to when this call came out to get these call records of these 110+ million Americans, presumably right after the Boston terror incident. So that was the guise under which they requested and then demanded this information at Verizon that gave it to them. What did you make of using that event? And on paper, that would sound fine, I guess, but then to extend it to the degree they did.
That is about the dumbest defense that I've heard today, and I've heard it today on this from the administration and others. The Russians were begging us to get a hold of this guy, terrorist number one, the dead terrorist. They shared information with our domestic and intelligence operations. The Department of Homeland Security concludes we don't have enough to hold the guy. He goes back to his Chechnya neighborhood or thereabouts and comes back, and so now they're going to throw a net on 110, 120 million Americans to try and track this down? This is so absurd, and it is a pretext, and I don't like any of it, whether it comes to health care or taxes or Obamacare, transportation, everything. They are collecting way too much information, and as far as Obama, he doesn't know what's going on. Well, he knows what's going on right now, for God's sakes. What's he going to do about it? Anything?
Well, you know what's interesting? As a senator, he was very critical of the Patriot Act, and that it was an overreach, and that the president at the time, President Bush, was overdoing this, again, under the guise of keeping us safe. Now, it would appear, whether it's at his direct orders or not, that he's doing it on steroids. Where is all of this going?
His direct orders or not. What is this, rope-a-dope? He's the President of the United States. He's the Commander-in-Chief. He's the top
So what do you want him to do, Mark? What would you like to hear?
I want him to clean house, or give a speech to the American people and tell us why we need to live in this semi- or soft police state, why we need to have all these records collected, whether it's health care, automobiles, whether it's our DNA, whether it's all these other things. I mean, come out of the shadows, Mr. President. Be honest with the American people and tell us about your fundamental transformation. That's what I want him to do.
Well, what I'm worried about, if you look at all of these various scandals or privacy invasions, Mark, the common theme is snooping on people, whether it's conservative groups and being targeted by the IRS and then individuals, or whether the Justice Department going after what we were told a few AP reporters and expanded to James Rosen at Fox and other Fox personnel, to what's going on at Health and Human Services, you know, sort of forcing private companies to cough up to pay for publicizing the health care law that they're in charge of policing. There is a common thread of just big brotherism in all of this that scares me.
This is what happens when our country becomes unmoored from the Constitution. The functions of the federal government are without limits. You have this all-powerful centralized government with concentrated power, stomping all over the First Amendment. I mean, look at these warrants with these reporters. I was chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States. We didn't take a back seat to anyone who leaked information to the media. But 20 phones tapped, 100 reporters, James Rosen's parents. What kind of mindless idiocy is that?
But what is it like to take phone records? Now, they say, and I didn't understand Verizon's statement. I didn't know from that statement whether they did acquiesce to this or not. So I don't know why they put out statements that make no statement. But leaving that aside, do you think that they're, by just seizing people's phone records, getting the phone records, and not listening in on the calls, is the government's way of saying, just in case you were to discard these, we want the protection of having these?
Well, I mean, who the hell knows what their purpose is here other than what they say their purpose is? And by the way, Verizon's being picked on. Verizon has no choice. And I bet AT&T's been hit up. I bet every single phone company in America has been hit up. But that said...
But what if a lot of these companies, I don't know what happened specifically here, Mark, but what if companies, you've heard this with Google and others, where they're just asked for this information and without a subpoena, without anything, or warrant or anything, they just go ahead and give it?
They don't have a leg to stand on. They don't have a leg to stand on. I mean, they can go to court and fight it, I suppose.
So everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid.
It's not that they're afraid. It's that the law's been twisted into a pretzel. And it's difficult to stop these sort of things. So we have to stop them politically. And
what's happening to us? I mean, like, it's one thing.
What's happening?
What is going on?
I think people better wake the hell up and understand something. That we are not a constitutional republic anymore. I don't know what we are. I'm not saying we're the most oppressive regime on the face of the earth either, but we are not a constitutional republic anymore. When you look at the First Amendment, the assault on free speech under these campaign laws, the assault on religious groups under the First Amendment, when you look at the effort to create a registry under the Second Amendment on guns, when you look at the Fourth and Fifth Amendments turned on their heads, the Ninth and Tenth Amendments, they pretend they don't even exist. We have a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court who twists the Commerce Clause and the meaning of tax in order to uphold Obamacare. This is lawlessness, and at some point we need to unravel this federal government, unravel the ruling class, and push power back to the states and localities and the people, or we're going to get more of this.
Mark Levin, thank you. You know, a lot of people call him a polarizing figure, but I got to tell you, all this stuff that we're, screaming about now, Mark calmly, lucidly, clearly pointed out years ago. This wasn't a right-left issue for him. He was forecasting this years ago. That was then. Look where we are now.